room, I'm going to ask you some questions. So the first question I have to ask is, how much time do we have for this?
You have more time because less of the students that were intending to share about going to college showed up. So you can have, I think, more like an hour if you need.
Okay, so I think what I'll do is use this for my little. Okay, so first I want everyone who is a high school student to stand up. Okay. All right, now I know who's the high school students. And I want everyone who is, so remain standing if you want to become a doctor. And if there's anyone else in the room who's not a high school student but who wants to become a doctor, feel free to stand now. Okay. Have a seat if you have one parent, at least one parent, who's a physician. Okay, I think I have one person who sat down. And then, now listen to this question, it's hard. I'm not asking you if you've aced math and science classes so far. I'm only asking you if you feel like you are really good in math and science. And if so, I want you to sit down. Okay, so this lady right here, this is who I was. You may have a seat. The persons that I went to medical school with are all the rest of you guys. They either had a parent who was a doctor, or they were really super great in math and science, okay? So I would be the one standing, not having a parent who had any knowledge whatsoever on what it even took to become a doctor. And I certainly did not feel like I was good in math and science. In fact, in high school, I had to take algebra 2 times because I don't know if you guys have heard of Raoul Wallenberg, but it's a charter school in San Francisco. And that's where I went to school. It was a college prep school. When I went, it was the first year that it actually opened. So I was the first graduating class of the charter school, college prep, no electives. Everyone took the same college prep courses all the way through. And I was super angry about it because I wanted to go to Washington where all the cute boys were. And my mother insisted that I be a part of this lottery because you couldn't just show up. You had to be a part of the lottery. And if your name got drawn, then you could go to Raoul Wallenberg. So as my mother was praying for me to go there, I was praying that I could go where all the cute guys were. So of course, my name got pulled and I had to go to Rhonda Wallenberg. And Wallenberg did not have any sports. If you wanted to play sports, you had to go to Washington, which my parents wouldn't let me go. And so I couldn't be a cheerleader, and I really wanted to wear the cute little miniskirt outfits and cheerlead. So I was really not happy. So I went to Wallenberg, took all of these college prep courses, and I'm going to be very honest. My whole idea about going to college was so that I could meet a great husband. And he would make lots of money, and I could sit around and play bridge and volunteer and, you know, just live a nice, relaxed life. I had no intentions whatsoever of being a doctor. And in fact, the way I picked my major was based on how easy it would be and what an easy life I can have, you see? So I was thinking, you know, what kind of life can I be at home early and still make a, you know, a regular full-time salary? And I was thinking, I could be a teacher, because teachers, they get out of school when their kids get out of school, and I can get off at like 2 o'clock, and I still have the whole rest of the day. I was just thinking, this is perfect. And then I thought, English, I'm gonna pick English, because when you write papers in English, let's say you write something on Shakespeare. Shakespeare says, you know, ripeness is all in King Henry IV. Well, I can decide what ripeness is all means. I can use some quotes from whatever he said and interpret it the way I want, and I can make ripeness is all mean whatever Rhonda says it means. And that's what I loved about English, because I could get an A in English just by writing a paper. So I was going to be an English teacher. I was very excited about that. Go to college, And the big joke at my church was, because I grew up in church, was that I was going to get my MRS degree, Mrs. Okay? That's the whole reason why I was going to college, to get my MRS degree. And so I went off to college. I got my little teacher's credential. I met my husband, guess when? The first day of college. Okay? The first day of college, I met my husband. 11 months later, we were married. I'm still married to the same man 29 years later. Okay? So I did what I wanted to do. I got married, and 4 or 5 years after we got married, we had a son. My son was 3 years old, and my husband is a pastor, and so he had been called to his first church in a little teeny town called Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And my son was just born, and all was well. But then it's funny. I did this really strange thing when I was about 15 years old. And I told God, whatever you ask me to do, I will do that thing. It doesn't matter what you ask me to do. If you ask me to do it, and I know it's you, God, who's asking me to do it, I will do it. And, I just felt so grateful to God. I got into a church service, a youth service, and the guy up there was talking about how, God died for any sin that you ever commit. All you have to do is say, God, I'm sorry, and he will forgive you, and he has a path for your life. And I thought, what a great God this is to do this for me. And I said then, I don't care what it is you ask me to do, I'm going to do it. So I was like 15 years old then. Now I graduated from high school when I was 16 because, long story, but I graduated from high school at 16. So 15, I made this little promise to God. And I made the promise, and then I went on about my business. I kind of forgot about it. So then 16, I went to college, and I met my husband the first day. Okay, then the next year, we got married, and then we moved, we graduated, and then we moved to a little town called Pine Bluff, Arkansas. And so I decided I wasn't going to just be a regular teacher. I was going to get my master's degree. Because if you get your master's degree, you can work, instead of a full day, you can work just a couple classes and still get full-time pay. So you see, I'm organizing my whole life around how I can do all that I want to do in a day and still get paid a decent salary to contribute to the household. Raise my children, maybe teach a class Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9 to 10, another one from 10 to 11. You only have to teach like 3 or 4 classes and you're full-time. And I thought, wow, I can have Tuesday, Thursday off, Saturday, Sunday. I was set, I was excited. So I was almost finished getting my master's degree. And part of what you have to do to get your master's degree is you have to teach some classes. It was called a graduate assistant. So I was a graduate assistant, and I was teaching English classes to freshmen coming in to the University of Arkansas, where we were living. And one of the elders of our church was the dean of the English department. And she said, you've gotten such great reviews as just a graduate assistant. I'm about 5 to 8 years from retiring, and I would love to groom you for my position as dean. So I had this vision in my mind that soon I would be dean, I would have a nice, smooth, cushy life, and I had 1 semester left, and I would be finished with my graduate degree, a Master's of Education, and I would be finished. And then everything changed. 1 semester left, you guys, 1 semester, and I would have met my goal. And then a series of very strange things happened. It's kind of hard to describe to people. It's never happened to me again. It never happened to me before. It's, I would say, unusual, but I guess the best way to say it is that I started to hear God's voice telling me to be a doctor. Now, I know this probably sounds very strange to you. It felt very strange to me. I feel like I'm a very rational, normal person. And if you start hearing voices in your head, you think maybe you're becoming psychotic. You know, I didn't want to tell people what was happening. It felt very strange. But all kind of weird things started happening. So I'll give you 2 examples. Because if I give you too many more, you guys might, put me on the psych ward. So I'm just going to give you 2 simple examples where it was pretty clear to me that I was finally hearing God's voice. Because the first 2 months that I heard the Lord tell me that I was to be a doctor, I completely ignored it, discounted it, and thought there's something the matter with me. Did not believe it. I don't believe in God speaking to people. That happened in the Bible. This is not what happens now. This is not normal. I'm refusing to hear this. So after about 2 months of these things happening, I'll tell you 2 examples of when I finally decided that I really am hearing God's voice. And I decided that I would listen. And God reminded me, remember what you promised when you were 15 years old. I'm going to hold you to it if you agree. So one example was, I was having this big argument with God. Where He was saying, I want you to be a doctor. I'm saying, certainly not I, God. Remember, I'm the one who didn't pass algebra. I had to take it twice. So clearly there's something the matter with my hearing, because number one, I don't have any desire of being a doctor. I've never thought about being a doctor. No one in my family is a doctor. So this was the little project that God gave me. He said, take a piece of paper and tear it into 10 pieces. Okay, so just like a piece of paper, you tear it into 10 pieces. And I want you to put yes on one of the 10 pieces of paper and put no on all the rest of the papers. Okay? You guys with me so far? Then you crumble up all the papers. I had all these little tiny papers all crumbled up in little balls. And I stood in front of, we had a king-size bed in our bedroom. And I had them all in my hand. And I kind of crumbled them all up. And I just really felt God say, I'm going to show you that I really mean this. I want you to take all those papers, throw them behind your head. And if only one hits your bed and all the other 9 don't hit the bed, then the answer in the bed is yours. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, God, what if 2 hit the bed? And then I felt, that's it. It has to be only one of those pieces of paper hit the bed. If any more than 1 hits the bed, everything in your mind is, you're right, this is all in your mind. That means only 1 can hit the bed and all the other 9 have to not hit the bed. So I thought, oh my God, this is so easy. Because what are the chances of, if you have 10 little pieces of paper and you throw them behind you, that only 1's going to hit the bed? I mean, I'm not a specialist in physics, but if the bed's right behind you, at least 2 are going to hit the bed, or maybe none will hit the bed, or all 9, but the example of just 1. So I thought, thank God I have an out. What do you think happened? Throw these pieces behind me. 1 hits the bed. I turn around and I look. I'm like, oh Lord, please no. I can't tell you. Pieces of paper were everywhere, but literally 1 piece on the bed. Then I thought, okay, maybe I pushed 1 a little bit harder, trying to make just 1 hit the bed. But I'd have no idea which one is the yes. So 1 in 10 chance that the yes won't hit the bed, or the yes will hit the bed. And of course, which one was it? Yes. So I still felt, this was one example in 2 months of things like this happening. So you can imagine how you can feel kind of strange and weird and something's the matter. The last situation that happened, where I decided I'm gonna, I felt the Lord say, I've been talking to you for 2 months. You made a promise to me when you're 15. I know your heart is to be obedient. I'm gonna show you one more time that I am who I am, and I'm asking you to do what I'm asking you to do. This is my last time coming to you. This is it. And so I was cleaning my house, sweeping the floor. My son was out of the house, my husband was out of the house, and I was cleaning the house, sweeping. And I felt the Lord say, turn on the television. I know this sounds strange, people, I know. And if the final Jeopardy answer has any, I'm telling you, this happened to me, okay? Imagine how I'm feeling. If the final Jeopardy answer has anything to do with medicine, that is your answer. If it has to do with anything else, you're free. So I'm like, okay, this is my other out. And I'm thinking, is it time for Jeopardy right now? I wasn't paying attention to the clock, and turned on the TV. Here comes Alex Trebek. I'm like, oh Lord. So he comes out and he says, the final Jeopardy topic, I'm literally shaking, okay? Medical history. Okay? I dropped the broom, and you know, at that point, this was 2 months of the Lord jumping through hoops for me. I just fell to my knees and I said, you know what, God? You do not have to ask me anymore. I surrender to your will for my life. It seems completely outlandish to me, but I tell you this story for one reason. Well, maybe 2 reasons. One is because the process to go from an English teacher to a decent medical school applicant was so huge. That gulf was so huge that God knew that I needed something very powerful and dramatic to remind me that this was his will in my life. If I was sort of like, maybe, not sure, the first time you had to pull an all-nighter to study, I would be out. I would say, forget it, this is too hard. But because I could remember that whole Jeopardy thing and the whole pieces of paper thing and so many other examples, I knew that I was called to do this work. And because of that, when times got rough, when it was really painful, when it was really scary, when I thought like, oh my God, I can't do this, all I had to do was say, this is the God who parted the Red Sea. This is the guy who raised the dead. This is the guy who created the world. Certainly, he can take a poor math student and make her into a doctor. And it was really that confidence of knowing that I'm called to do this work that propelled me forward, that gave me the energy to say, I'm not like the rest of the medical students. I'm different, but that's okay. That means I'm going to be a different kind of doctor. I'm not going to be the type of doctor that everyone's used to. I'm going to be the kind of doctor that God's called me to be. And so from that point, I went to the dean of, imagine me going in. I'm giving my notice, I'm going to go back to school and become a doctor, you know? The look on everyone's faces. And then my mother, she's a very traditional woman. I call her a male chauvinist, okay? When I called my mother and told her I was going to become a doctor, she screamed, ah! What about my grandson, Jonathan? Because Jonathan was a baby then. And in her mind, your role as a mother, you made this commitment to be a wife and a mother, and being a medical student is not conducive with doing all of those things. Now you see, if I hadn't known I was called by God, then I might have been influenced by that. You know, I might have felt, wow, my mother was discouraging me from this. But I knew I was called. So I said, you know what, Mother? And I told her the story of what happened, because I hadn't been telling anybody this. It's too embarrassing. But I went on and I told her what happened. And she says, well, Rhonda, I take it all back. If God said to do it, you do what you have to do. Because if you're being obedient to God, then I'm going to, she couldn't say anything more than that. And so from there, it was quite a tremendous experience. I went back and I quit my job, gave up the deanship that I was going to have for myself, and I ended up going back to school with the students that I taught. Okay, it's very interesting. Like, instead of me teaching you, I'm all of a sudden, can I borrow your notes? No, it was a very strange thing, but there was no internet or any of that, so I had to go to the, forget what they call the office, where you figure out what you need to do for certain majors. Well, I had none of the prerequisites. I took English. So I had to do Algebra 1 and 2, I had to do General Chemistry 1 and 2, and then Organic Chemistry, and then Calculus 1 and 2, and Physics 1 and 2. It was like a whole new world, whole new language. But this is what God can do in your life. Do you know that from the time I started the medical prerequisites until I got in, I never got anything less than an A? Can you believe it? I mean, this is the one who did not pass algebra in high school. I got nothing but straight A's all the way through. And in fact, when I was in college, the third time, because it was undergrad, the graduate degree, and then back as an undergrad, Apple Computer gave me, because of my grades and my scores and the standardized tests that we had to take, they gave me a grant to tutor physics to the other students. I mean, you guys can't imagine how completely out of character this is. A girl who couldn't pass algebra in high school is now getting a grant without applying for it to tutor college students physics. Completely amazing. So then my husband got called to a church in Roxbury. I didn't know much about Roxbury, and I was like, babe, when you go to the interview, ask if they have any med schools out there.
Boston?
Roxbury is a part of Boston, which I didn't know.
There's only like
there's like tons
a dozen.
Of med schools in there. So I was like, yeah, find out. So I ended up taking the MCATs and scoring much higher than I expected. And I got accepted to 5 medical schools. And I went to a little private school called Tufts Medical School in Boston, where I got a master's degree and a medical degree in the same 4 years. And then I did
That's one of the best medical schools in Boston.
It was a great school. And then I did a Harvard residency, and I got to be appointed as faculty teaching Harvard residents.
And that's the best medical school in
great.
Boston, or in the world.
Great. So now I'm here at the Veterans Hospital taking care of the veterans with an appointment to teach the Stanford residents. So all I can tell you guys is this. Everybody comes into medicine for a different reason. But I'll say to you, for example, you're the different one who maybe doesn't feel strong in math or science. Or maybe there's some women in here who are feeling like a little uncomfortable being the non-traditional white male, but you're something different than that. I just want to encourage you, if you feel a passion for it, for me it was a calling from God, but for you it may be a passion. You may have had an experience in your life, a trauma in your life that has positioned you in such a way that this will be a really great fit. And really, to me, the best doctors are like the ones like Enoch Choi here, who really has a sense of passion for what he does. Because then it's not work, it's a calling, it's a passion, it's enjoyable. And I can't tell you how many people I went to med school with who either dropped out, when they finished they did something else, they were doing it for their parents, they were doing it for their prestige. It's just such, the kind of work that you do, being a physician, it's not this glamorous work, okay? You put on a glove and you put your finger in someone's rectum, okay? That's not glamorous. You have big boils that you have to cut with pus squishing out, I think what they show you on TV is different than the real world of what you're actually dealing with. And so I think if you come into it with something that, for me, it was a calling from God that just kept me centered. But if you have that something, then I say go for it. Go for it if you're atypical. Go for it if you're not the usual. Just go for it. Okay? That's my story.